Welcome to Artistic Adventures. Today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to start working on a project that I started a while back and make a sweater for this doll, even though I don't knit. All right, so I hope you remember this doll. I made this wig for her in a video, and it's one that I sewed on the wig cap instead of gluing the fiber on. Her name is Cosette, and she's not a one of the real expensive ball jointed dolls. I think she's made out of plastic. You can get her on Amazon for I think about 48 bucks. I'll put a link in the description box. But this all started with these pink shoes. I found these shoes and bought them, and I want to make an outfit that goes with the shoes. So that's what this project is. And I'm going to make a pair of pants, but the major focus is the sweater. So I'm using this floral pattern of it's just a cotton, I think a poly cotton blend. And I did put some fray check on the edges, and I used that E6000 fray check for that, and that ended up being a mistake, as I'll show you a little bit later, but I didn't know it at this point. Now this is a child sweater that I bought at a thrift store for a couple of bucks, and so what I'm going to do is use this sweater to make a doll sweater, since I can't knit. I've tried, I can't do it. So I took my doll and laid it down so I could make the outline of the pattern, and then I put some of that other type of fray check. It's made by Dritz, I believe, and put an outline. And I did this because if you cut this fiber of the yarn, it will fray and unravel. I took the sleeve of the sweater and made the pattern for the sleeve of the doll. So I'm trying to make use of the different parts of the sweater so that my sweater on my doll will have a finished look, even though I don't know how to knit at all. So I'm going to make it sort of a high-low pattern, higher in the front than the back. So I'm going to make it come together at the sides there, and then that back part will be the scalloped part that hangs down in the back. So we hope this all turns out. Um, it's really going to be a good way to make a sweater if it works. Okay, so I turned it over and I'm putting that other type of fray check on the other side of the back piece. And you have to let this dry a little bit, but it does do a pretty good job of sealing the fibers so that they don't unravel. Now, some other prep work that I did last night was I cut out a pocket, and then I took some strips of the floral material, and this strip is going to be a flower that I'm going to make, and I put some fray check on one side of that. The other is the selvage side, so it wouldn't unravel. I'm going to end up folding that over and running a gather thread through the bottom of it to make a flower to put on the sweater. Um, this is going to be sort of a decorative sweater. Yeah, and the little pocket, I also put the fray check around that so it wouldn't unravel. And then on these pieces, you can't see it, but I drew flat, sort of a leaf shape with the fray check so that I can cut out leaf shapes. And I'm going to use these also to decorate the sweater. And I'm cutting them out about maybe four different sizes, um, because they're going to get gradually larger as they go down the front of the sweater. And we'll be doing that later on. So here they are all the ones I cut out. And you can see how they sort of graduate down in size. And I'm just going to put those aside for right now. And we'll get to that part closer to the end of the video. But first we've got to make the sweater. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out the sleeves pattern out of the sleeve of the little sweater that I bought. And I'm going to be using the fray check all the way around on all of this part of the sleeve too, because the biggest challenge here with this is not letting the sweater unravel and also not letting it stretch. Now this is the E6000, and I'm using it on this one because I hadn't started sewing yet. I'm narrating after the fact here. But the problem was this is a lot more gel-like than the Dritz fray check. The Dritz is more liquidy. So what happens is this really sort of beads up on top of the fabric. It doesn't sink in like the other kind does, and it's when it dries, it's rubbery, and it caused me to not be able to sew it. The presser foot wouldn't pull it through the machine. It was sticking to the metal of the presser foot. So here I am. I've got this on these pants too, and this is where I found out. So I've got that fray check. See right on there. I'm gonna sew the under uh, the side the seam that goes down the front and the back. So I started sewing, and it was like, okay, this is not going anywhere. It was stuck. So I thought, okay, I'll just sew it by hand. I didn't want to, but I did. I sewed it by hand. So there's the front, and I also did the back. And then I said, you know what? I'm cutting this stuff off. I'm not going to sit here and sew these pants by hand. That is crazy. So I cut the fray check off, and then I just put it together. I didn't even use the other fray check because I was so frustrated at this point, and it was taking a long time. So I did sew the one of the seams that goes down the front with just needle and thread, but the rest of it I was after I cut the E6000 stuff off, I was able to use my sewing machine, and whee, does that go a whole lot faster. So I guess there might be uses for that E6000. I think I've used it in some other situations, but for just putting it on some material that you're going to sew, especially on a machine, it really doesn't work well because it's too thick and rubbery. So I've got the all the seams on the pants sewn, and I've got the legs turned. And now I'm just going to do a simple fold down elastic waist on these pants. So they fit really well. So I'm just going to see pretty much how much I need to turn down here to have it fit right at her waist. And that's going to turn out really perfect for me to run some elastic through. It ended up being about 3/4 of an inch or so that I could turn down. So I'm going to use this small elastic. You could use a little bit bigger and just measure around her waist. I didn't really pull it that tight. And then I'm going to run a seam around the bottom of the part that I turned down, but I'm going to leave a little gap in the back not sewn down, and that way I'll be able to insert the elastic. All right, so I've got it. I had a couple issues with my sewing machine came unthreaded there. So anyway, sewed that all the way around, and then you'll see there's an opening in the back, and that's where we're going to run the elastic. And to do that, I'm just going to use some safety pins and pin one end in that I can use to run it through the hem there, and then just so you don't lose the other end and pull it through as you're going, I'm going to go ahead and pin that end down to the fabric so I don't lose it when I'm pulling it through. Since this is so small, that's easy to do. So after I did that, then I got the two ends, took the pins off, and got some needle and thread and just sewed a few seams in and out there, tied off a knot, and that secured the two pieces of elastic together. Tied a knot in that, and then now we can finish up the hem on the sewing machine, and that will complete the waistband. So we just tuck our elastic back in there and just go back over that area that we didn't sew before, and then it will be sewn all the way around. All right. I'm not spending a whole lot of time on the pants because they weren't really the thing. I wanted them, just to be a sort of pair of nice cotton pants in a floral pattern. And so they fit and they'll work great underneath the sweater. The sweater is going to be the focus here because it's going to be very elaborate to go with the decorativeness of those shoes. They have the rhinestones and everything. I just love those shoes. All right, so now I'm going to start sewing my seams on my sweater. So I'm going to sew the underarm seam, the side seams first. You really have to be careful here not to stretch this material. You have to actually push the material up towards the presser foot as you're sewing. Otherwise, it will really stretch it out. And making sure I get those hem areas equal so that when I turn it, they match up. And now I'm going to sew the sleeves together. I did actually use the E6000, but because I put the right sides together and that's where the E6000 was, it didn't mess up my sewing, fortunately. All right, so I've got the two sleeves sewn and I'm going to turn those, and then we still have to sew those into the body of the sweater. But this is a lot easier to sew than smaller dolls, so it's not so bad. I'm going to take that strip that I showed you earlier. I'm going to fold that down, and then I'm going to lengthen my stitch to the maximum length and run a gathering thread along the bottom of that piece. And once we finish that, then we can pull one of the threads and gather this piece up. And this is going to be used to make a flower decoration that we're going to put on the front of the sweater. But we're going to use the same material that we used for the pants, so it's all going to be so coordinated. I don't know if I've told you guys this, but I wanted to be a fashion designer when I was younger. I don't know what happened, but I ended up not being a fashion designer. But so I'm making use of that desire now. So we're going to go back later and sew this together so it doesn't become unraveled, but basically you can see that's how it's going to look. And then I have this really nice snippet of antique lace that my friend Deb gave me. I've told you about her, how she sends me these little pieces of lace, and I really love them because it's so beautiful. You just don't find lace like this. It's like a cotton lace. And I gathered that also, and we're going to nestle that flower into the center of the lace. All right, so there's our finished hem. It's the high-low hem. And then I took the fray check and cut and made a mark down the center of the back, and that's going to be the opening because we do have to get this over her head, and she got a big head, sort of out of proportion with her body. But anyway, now I took this strip and hemmed both edges of it, and I'm going to use this to put around that seam or that cut that I opened in the back to finish it. And that's the thing you have to think about when you're trying to make a sweater out of a sweater is once you cut the fibers, they can unravel the whole sweater. So you've got to find some way to finish them off and stop that from happening. So I sewed that around and I'm just going to tuck that bottom part under and then overlap it, and we'll put some Velcro on that in a minute. But that's going to be the back, and I like it that it's kind of coordinated, with the pants too. All right, now we're going to go ahead and cut our Velcro. I'm cutting thin strips of this off of a bigger piece, and then I'm going to glue it onto that opening in the back of the sweater, just like that. All right. Now the next thing we do is sew the sleeves in. And this was a little tricky, but I was able to do it on the sewing machine. Sometimes when these opening, the hole for the sleeve is so small, you have to do it by hand because you just can't get it under the sewing machine presser foot. But fortunately, I was able to do it, and I did actually pin this in. You know how I hate to pin, but it was really necessary to get this to come out right. So pinned both of the sleeves in, and then I was able to sew it on the sewing machine, and I didn't stretch it out too much. Having the fray check on really helps because it makes it so that it's a little bit stiff and it doesn't stretch as much. So that part actually worked out pretty well. So I was a little nervous about starting this project. I really didn't know how it would work because I knew the sweater material would stretch, but it's coming along pretty nice. All right, so there's the body of our sweater. We've got the hem. We made use of the sleeve hems so that we didn't have to hem that, but the neckline is going to need some work. That's still raw. Now it does have the fray check on it, but I'm going to make use of the neckline of the little sweater that I bought, and I put the fray check down into this ridge that runs around the neckline, and I'm going to let that dry and work on a few other things. So I'm going to put the glue on the back of one side of the Velcro, and I have the two pieces of the Velcro together, and then I've just pressed that together so it can dry. And while that's drying, we're going to work on some of the embellishments and get those ready to put on the sweater. So the first thing we're going to do is get our needle and thread ready, and we're going to fasten down that fabric flower so that it doesn't unravel when we attach it. I did trim off a little bit of it so it wasn't quite so big. Now the ends of this were raw edges, so I'm just folding those down and sewing those so they don't show from behind where they stick out from behind the flower. And then I'm just attaching different layers together with needle and thread so that they don't come loose. And you don't have to do too many, just so that it's secure and it's laying the way you want it to lie. And then that's the final part. And we've got our little flower. And I think that's going to look about the right size. So now we're going to attach it to the lace, but first I've got to sew the lace together so that it doesn't come apart. And it's gathered enough that all I had to do was just overlap the two edges and sew those together. And that really made it the perfect size to fit that flower inside of it. And guess what? We're going to use some E6000 to glue it in there. But before that, I wanted to show you I have this little crystal that I want to put in the center because, those shoes have the diamonds on them. And I want to have this be, blingy to go along with the shoes. So I'm going to glue that inside too. So the first thing is to glue the flower into the lace, then put a glob in the center of the flower and attach our crystal inside. And that's our finished embellishment. Now off camera, I string up these pearl beads in 3 different lengths, and then I have the 2 colors of ribbon, and they're going to hang down from the flower on the front of the sweater. Okay, while that's drying, while the glue's drying, I'm gonna hem this pocket, and basically I'm just gonna turn up like 1/4 of an inch all the way around on all, 5 sides? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5 sides. And I left the top for last because I wanted that to look nice and finished. So once I get this finished, it looks pretty, finished edges wise, and then we can put it on the sweater. And I'm going to put it on it's the right side of the sweater. On the screen it looks like it's on the left, but it's on the right side of the sweater. I'm going to put that over there because I'm going to put some other decorations on the left side of the sweater. Now I thought I needed to put something underneath it that I could press down, and I thought this bottle would be a good idea. So I'm just gluing down all but the top of the pocket. And then I thought it really wasn't going to work for attaching the leaves, so I just folded the aluminum foil flat, and that's so that any glue that comes through won't stick to the back of the sweater. All right, going to start with the largest petals at the bottom. I had 3 that were fairly large. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on one end, and then we're going to attach that to the sweater. And I like this to hang a little bit below the hem, so I'm positioning it so that it's just a little bit below the hem. And then I put the other 3 in, and now I'm just going to start overlapping the leaves and using the bigger ones first and then getting smaller as I go up. And I'm working at an angle from the left bottom part of the sweater to the right shoulder area. It looks opposite on screen, but that's how it is actually. So I'm just overlapping them, being a little bit random with placement, but just so that the tops don't show of the leaves. And then the very top part where we get to the shoulder will be hidden by that corsage that we've made. All right, so there's our leaves sort of sprinkled down the side. And then we're going to take the flower and put on there, but I don't want to put that on yet because I have to finish the neckline before I do that. So it's going to look like that, which I think it's going to really look great. I'm really getting excited about how this is going to turn out at this point. And I'm measuring to see where the bottom of that is so I know where I'll attach my ribbons and pearls so that they will come out from underneath it but not be too hidden by it. So I've got like a dark pink and a light pink, and I just cut those at different lengths so that they'll look decorative. And I'm just going to put a little line of glue up there and then attach the tops of those ribbons to that in a pleasing appearance. Then I'm going to take another blob of glue on my pen there and twist the threads of those pearl beads and just glue that right in there on top of where the ribbons are. And this should be measured so that they will hang out from underneath the corsage. All right, so I had to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back with this part that we cut off of the neckline of the little child sweater. And the fray check is pretty dried by now, and I just want to attach this up here to finish up the neckline. So what I'm doing first is I'm going to whip the end because it's raw, and I want to make sure that it doesn't come unraveled and that it looks nice. So after that, I'm going to attach it to the back, the part that laps over the other side. And then I'm just sewing it back and forth, catching the body of the sweater and then going back and catching the neckline. And it ended up looking really nice. I really like how that turned out. And now it's time to attach our flower. This is the exciting part. I don't really like sewing so much, but I really like the embellishment part. How about you? All right, so I just put some E6000 on there, of course, and we're going to let that dry. And then the really fun part is when we get to try it on the doll and see our finished look with the pants and everything. But I think it turned out really pretty. I love the pink color and I love how the fabric goes with the color of the pink sweater. All right, so we've put it on the doll, and now we're going to start putting things back on her because we had taken her wig off so that we would be manipulating her and not mess it up. So I'm going to get that back on her. And then, of course, we got to put the shoes on. And then the first time I put them on the wrong feet. The little bow goes on the outside. And so there's those fantastic, cute little shoes. All right, now I'm going to position her up against this wall so you can see her in the whole outfit. And then I'll take some still photos as usual to give you a closer look. Because the camera is like landscape layout, I can't get as close as I can with the camera to just take some still pictures. But anyway, there she is, our finished doll, and you can see from the side and also from the back. I think it turned out really, really adorable. I love the sweater. In fact, I would like to have one of these sweaters for myself. So I have to think about that. All right, let's take a look at some still photos, and you'll be able to get a little bit better look at some of the details. Plus, when I hold the camera, when I'm holding the video, I'm always shaking it. I'm not that still. Sorry about that. Anyway, there's the shoes that started everything, and I think they go great with the pants. And working our way up, then this is the sweater not on the doll, although the color doesn't show up really well in this photo. But I did want to show you how it looks with that high-low hem. And then here's another picture of her with the sweater full length, showing pants, shoes, everything. And then here's a little closer view so you can see mostly the sweater. You can still see her head, and then even a little closer view. And she's really styling this look with the hand on the hip. She's happy to have some clothes. She hasn't had any clothes since I bought her. And another final look at this really pretty sweater. I like how it turned out. I hope you did too. If you did, give me a thumbs up. We're going to be moving on to some other projects. I want to finish up some things I started before we moved into our new house, and I hope you will join me. Please be sure and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Thanks, and bye.